Good evening, everyone. The 32nd regular meeting of the Medford City Council, October 12th, 2021. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Present.
Council Falco.
Present.
Vice President Knight. Council Marks.
Present.
Council Morel.
Present.
Council Scarpelli.
Present.
President Caraviallo.
Present. Please rise and salute the flag. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The motion by Vice President Knight to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Vice President Knight.
To an existing billboard before us this evening that was tabled for a couple weeks, and I'm hoping we can take that matter up as the
It's paper 21568. Petition to reverse sign denial by Yano Amara for Clear Channel Outdoor, 236 Mrs. Avenue, Medford, Mass. Reason for denial needs a city approval. I think I see Yano Amara here. Good evening, Yano.
Good evening, Council President Caraviallo and members of the council. If I may, can I share my screen?
If you can,
Hang on a second. I'll let you in.
hold on a second. He'll let you, so you can do that.
You should be all set.
Okay, so you should be all set.
Perfect. Can you guys see?
Yes, we can.
All right, good evening. My name is Yano Amara with Clear Channel Outdoor. And we have a project going on at 236 to 240 Mystic Avenue. Mr. Ron Roberto, which I think he is present in the crowd tonight. We have been a tenant here for Mr. Roberto for just over 16 years. And he had approached us recently. Over the past couple of years, he was having an issue with his parking lot, with the weather coming in, the snow, rain. He's not getting proper drainage for his tenant, Hertz Rental Cars. So he had come to us to see if there was anything we could do with the sign to move it, to help him out, as the drainage isn't really working out for him. And he'd like to see if he could, if he can fix it on his own and we could possibly move the sign. So he had asked us to move the sign 15 feet to the south of the property. Hopefully that will allow him to fix his parking lot to alleviate, the drainage issues, improve snow removal, and improve parking for his Hertz Rental Car tenant. So we would like to proceed to see if we could move this sign and upgrade the sign to digital, which we do have 2 other signs within the city, north and south of the billboard. And as prior agreements, we give the city 7 hours of public service messaging per month on each face, 15 hours of public service from MassDOT, which they receive. The city would get $25,000 per year linkage fee for the life of the lease. So however long the lease is there, the city will get $25,000 per year. The sign does go dark from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So as people are aware, the signs do just completely shut off, turn back on at 5 a.m. And then if we are approved by council tonight, we'll enter into another development agreement with the city of Medford with the above terms. And, in the past, these billboards, they can be used for public service announcements, weather, Amber Alerts, FBI bulletins, emergency response programs. And the city does take advantage of the public service advertising. In the past, here's what's been advertised on these billboards for the city. So we are basically seeking permission to move the sign 15 feet south and convert this to a digital, upgrade it to digital.
Mr. President?
Vice President Knight.
I'm very familiar with this parcel of land. I'm very familiar with the billboard agreement that the city has with Clear Channel. It's not something that's negotiated by the city council. The terms of the agreement are the terms of the agreement. I think really the issue that's before us this evening is whether or not we're going to reverse the sign denial because of the denial that was issued by the building commissioner, because it falls out of the scope of our sign ordinance. Ultimately, this billboard has always fallen outside the scope of our sign ordinance because it was part of a program that was negotiated with the state. In order to allow the property owner to get the necessary relief that he needs to make his parcel more accessible and more developable, I think it makes sense for us to approve this measure this evening, Mr. President. The way that I look at this is we're addressing an environmental concern relative to the runoff and leakage and drainage problems that we have at the gentleman's parcel. We're also getting upgrades to the existing billboard to make it more environmentally friendly. E-transfer, it's going to help us out with light pollution and the like. So I think that this is a measure, Mr. President, that's a win-win for all. It allows the property owner to get the necessary relief that he needs. It allows Clear Channel the opportunity to upgrade their existing equipment, and it allows us here in the city of Medford to have some of the best state-of-the-art, most up-to-date equipment to utilize through public service programs that they have. So I, for one, certainly feel as though this is a measure that the council should be approving, and I will move for approval.
Thank you. Council Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few questions. So the plan is that the sign would move 15 feet, and then the property owner would do whatever additional work they need to do to improve drainage. You guys are simply just moving the sign. You're not doing anything else.
No, we're just moving the sign, and the property owner can handle the drainage himself and do what he has to do to the city and get the necessary permits to do so.
Okay, thank you. And Vice President Knight just alluded that the illumination would be different. It would actually be lower and less disruptive with the LED, the digital billboard, as opposed to the current illuminated one. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the electronic billboards are monitored by the state. I believe they're measured in nits. So the state does monitor the brightness of the billboards. And with new technology today, if the signs are too bright, they have a sensor in it that automatically brings them back down to current the proper brightness.
Okay. Do you know how close this is to the other digital billboard? I don't know if
The other digital billboard, it should be well over 1,100 feet.
okay. So relatively close. Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just for a little bit of background on this, I actually sat on the council when there was a pushback some 16, 17 years ago to consolidate the number of billboards that existed throughout the community, and many of which abutted neighborhoods, as we all are aware. And the pushback then was to kind of centrally focus the billboards along 93 and take them out of the neighborhood areas. And I believe the agreement that was passed some years ago was very successful in taking out some of that blight in our neighborhoods. And at the time, residents were very happy with the agreement that was struck by then Mayor McGlynn and some of the big billboard advertising companies at the time. Ron Roberto has been in this community for 100 years. I know you're not that old, Ron, but he's been an establishment in this community for 100 years, Mr. President. He's been a tremendous business owner. He's been a tremendous advocate for social service programs in our community, and someone that I look up to, Mr. President, as a business leader in our community. So I just want that to be known, Mr. President. The question I had to Mr. Yano, he mentioned the 25,000 in linkage and 7 hours of public service messages. I was just wondering, is that differ from the current agreement that is in place now?
Yes, we would enter into another, a separate agreement. Another agreement with the town.
Okay, so can you state what the original agreement is, and when does that, was that a 20-year agreement, and when does that end?
So basically, it's the life of the lease. So currently we have a 25-year extension on the billboard lease with Mr. Roberto. So for at least another 25 years, it's 25K each year.
So the current lease was for how long?
With Mr. Roberto,
Yes.
I think that expires in 5 years.
So that expires in 5 years. So when you talk about the 25,000 in linkage, is it just for this sign, or is it for other signs included?
It's just for this sign. The other signs are already included in a development agreement with the city
Right.
in a
And
separate.
So the 7 hours of public service is in addition to
Correct,
another hours that are being done right now?
correct. In addition, in another 25K on top of the other agreement.
Right. Are you able to tell us how many public service hours have been messaged on that board since its inception?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but, you know, in prior slides that I did show, let me see if I can show these again. I mean, it does look like the city does take advantage of it. Here's at least 6. I'd say probably within the last, you know, 6 months. And then here's another 6 that were used. So the city does, you know, take advantage of the usage.
Mr. Clerk, Mr. President, as part of this report, I would ask that we receive an update on the public service messages that are going out by the city. I want to make sure if they're allotting, it's a very expensive endeavor, if anyone ever puts something up on a billboard. And I want to make sure that we're using it to benefit our local civic groups as well as our sports teams and any other messaging, Mr. President. So I want to make sure that we're taking full advantage of that. I have, as my colleague stated, I have no problem upgrading to a digital board. You know, that's the wave of technology, and it's the latest and greatest. The illuminants are less than what's out there now, so that's always been a concern with the butters and neighborhood, and the fact that it's going to be shut off after, did you say 11, Mr. Yano?
Yeah, they go dark from 11 to 5 a.m.
11 to 5 a.m. The city does not pay for a nickel of the electricity that's paid by the property owner, and we get 25,000 in linkage. So to me, this is a win-win, Mr. President, and I will support it tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Yano for the presentation. Yano, could you show us slide number 4 again?
Sure. Yep. You see it?
No. I think it was the slide with all the community benefits. I just want to look at that one more time. I missed the last one, I think.
And you need to reshare your screen because we're not seeing
Okay,
anything.
1 second. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
What's it? Point out with the bullet number 1, 2, 5. It looks like it's cut off at the end. I just want to make sure I can see the whole thing. If you want to read it, that's fine.
Bulletproof, bullet point 5, if approved by city council, CCO will enter into another development agreement with the city of Medford with the above terms.
Okay. Okay. That's all I wanted to see. Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? Okay, so on the motion by
Second.
Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Martin,
Yes.
Council,
Yes,
Council Stone.
Yes.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Amara. Thank
Motion to
you,
refer
Mr.
back to
Roberto.
regular order of business, Mr. President.
And thank you for coming down, Mr. Roberto.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
And you,
So on the motion to revert back to regular business by Council Marks,
second,
seconded by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falcon.
yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Chair Viala.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. Okay. Hearings. 20568. The Medford City Council shall conduct a public hearing in the Howard F. Alden Chambers at Medford City Hall, 85 Joyce B. Hessett Drive, Medford, and via Zoom on Tuesday, October 21st. A link to be posted no later than Thursday, October 7th, 2021, to take the following actions in regards and with regard to the zoning ordinance. All right, so we have delete existing ordinance. The intent is to delete the entire existing ordinance. Article 1 in general, and this will be replaced with the proposed ordinance, Section 10. Section 1-0, purpose and authority. Article 2, administration and enforcement. To replace with 2.0 district. Reserved, Article 3, reserved, Section 3.0, use regulations. Article 4, use regulations, to replace by Section 4.0, dimensional regulations. Article 5, signs, Section 5, non-conforming uses and structures. Article 6, site plan review, replaced with Section 6.0, general regulations. Article 7, development linkage fees, to be replaced with Section 7.0, special regulations. Article 8, vacant and foreclosing properties, to replace with special, Section 8.0, special residential regulations. Article 9, inclusionary housing, which will be replaced with Section 9.0, special district regulations. Zoning map. Section 10, development linkage fees. Section 11, administration and enforcement. Section 12, definition, zoning map dated. Okay, so the full proposed zoning recodification is available for view in the city clerk's office and online at Drive Google com-folders 1ETNFOLLALIWI. Call 781-393-2425 for any accommodations. Do we have any questions on the hearing yet? For this hearing, do we have anybody in favor of this?
Mr. President, motion to continue the public hearing and refer the paper to the Community Development Board.
On the motion by Vice President Knight to refer the paper to continue the hearing to the Community Development Board.
Mr. President?
Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues. This has been a long, arduous process over the last year and a half. Countless meetings, hundreds of hours, Mr. President, meetings, the hiring of a consultant. And I believe what we have now is a good working document, one in which requires additional stakeholder input. And that is going to take place over a period of time with the Office of the Community Development Board, as well as with this Medford City Council. So there's much room for discussion and change. This was a starter document that we put together. It hasn't been looked at in probably 30-something years, the zoning in our community, so it was long overdue. The one request I would have, Mr. President, and I've had a number of residents reach out to me, asking me to summarize the major changes in this particular document. And I know we have a red line, a blue line copy, and unless you've been working with this document for the past year and a half, to me, zoning is pretty complex. I think it's one of the most complex issues that I've had to deal with in my tenure on the council. And at this point, I would ask that if we go back to our consultant and see if he can put together a brief summary of the major changes. There was a lot of technical changes, and I don't think at this point the technical changes we have to summarize. But the major changes that, and I guess that's open for interpretation, but the major changes to this, Mr. President, if he can put together just a brief summary so residents can look at it rather than going through a 100-page document, look at it and say, okay, this is impacted, that's impacted. I agree, I don't agree. I should research this further. I don't need to research it further. And at least give them a starting point. We've all sat through hundreds of hours of meetings, and most residents haven't had that opportunity, nor would I say they should have been that involved. That's why they elect us. But it's important that they have a thumbnail cursory of what transpired through this work of this council over the last year and a half. So I would respectfully ask that be part of Council Vice President Knight's paper to move this forward to the community development. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Council Bears.
if I could further amend that, oh, sorry. You can go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll just go really quickly. If we could post the red line copy online as well as the summary when we get it, and I'm totally in agreement with you. I think we might have asked Mr. Bobrowski to do that at the committee of the whole meeting. So it should be, maybe it could be done more quickly. So I'm hoping that both of those can be posted online. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Morel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Marks for his words and just echo what he said, and that this moving to the Community Development Board is just another step in the feedback process. There's a lot of time for more stakeholder input, citizen resident input. This isn't us rubber stamping it. This is us just moving it to the next process of engagement. And I just want to make that clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Council Falcon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank all my colleagues for all their help with this. This actually has been a long process. Like Councilor Marks mentioned, at least a year and a half that we've gone through this year. A lot of meetings, great team effort. We're not done, but this is a major piece of the process, passing it on to the CD board. And I believe Mark Bobrowski is working on that document, which is definitely something that will benefit everyone that wants to look at the changes that we made. But this has been a great team effort, and I look to definitely work towards a finished product. We're going to be better for it in the end, and well worth the time and effort that we put into it. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, this was a long, arduous process. And again, I'm very happy that we hired Mr. Bobrowski. He's probably the foremost authority on zoning in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and he will be presenting this to the OCD board. And I'd like to hopefully after this is done, I'd like to have him come back and actually help with the actual zoning of the city. I mean, his expertise is really second to none. So I say, after this is done, we can have a discussion on this, but I'd like to have him come back and help out further. So on the motion by Vice President Knight.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Falco, as amended by Councilor Bears and amended by Councilor Marks. Anyone else? Did I miss anybody? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Yes. Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 affirmative, motion passes. Motions, orders, and resolutions, 21527, offered by Council Scarpelli. Be it resolved that the City Council get a report from the city engineer in the administration on street openings and the final paving of those projects with dates of paving completion over the past 5 years. Council Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I know that Mom had her funeral today, and I just want to thank everybody that's on the council that supported my family and understand the reason why I'm not there this evening. But I just, I want to just make sure that, this was something I presented a few weeks back that, was being held off, and I appreciate bringing this forward this evening, but if we could just get a report from, the city administration, the engineer, his office, that, we can look back at some of the projects that we've done that have been performed by especially our utility companies, and if the projects were brought back to what we request every time that the openings are at the same or better condition. So if we can get just a simple list and what has been done, so I can check. It's not just one. The problem is there's probably about 15 to 16 that people have contacted me on. So if we can get that, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. On the motion by
Second.
Council Scarpelli, seconded by Council Falco. Further discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Yes. Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21528, offered by Council Scarpelli, be it resolved that the city council expresses sincere condolences to the family of Richard Thoreau, a longtime Medford resident. Council Scarpelli.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Thord was a longtime Medford resident who lost his life with battle with cancer, and a very important person in my life. Was one of the first people to volunteer and call and help my run in the school committee years ago. And I graduated with a son, Scott, and longtime Medford family, and just want to send sincere condolences and well wishes to the family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
On the motion by Council Scarpelli, seconded by Council Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Yes. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21575, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it resolved that the administration notify residents via reverse 911 call, inform them of these 5G facilities that have been approved. 0 Gourley Road, 0 West Street,
I think I skipped
24
one.
Pearl Street, 26 Royal Street, 48 Clark Street, 40 Ashland Street, 12 Fulton Street, 23 Woodrow Ave, 123 Grant Ave, 0 Logan Ave, 0 Brookside Parkway, 83 Washington Street, 39 Charnwood Road, and 163 Forest Street. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. As we're all aware, if you've been paying attention to what's going on in this community, as of recent, the issue of 5G
Sure.
technology was certainly a concern,
Skip one. Skip one.
which was 0 Goalie Road.
No.
Oh, we skipped I'm sorry.
We can jump back to
Did
it.
I skip one?
Well, George's. Yeah, Mr.
Oh,
President.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
President, why don't we get Councilor Scarpelli's items out of the way? He's had a long day.
All right. Well, you finish yours. Might as well just finish yours.
Ultimately, Mr. President, the issue of 5G facilities in this community has been a topic of discussion and concern. There are many individuals in this community that have expressed some concern about 5G technology and the placement thereof. Recently, the city's ad hoc small cell committee has approved 17 5G towers to be located in the city of Medford. And I just want to be sure that the residents that are going to be abutting these 5G towers are notified of the circumstance that the approval has been awarded, and whether or not there are any appeals processes for these abutters should they wish to pursue them. So that's the resolution in a nutshell, Mr. President.
Thank you. On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by by Council Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Yes. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Carviallo.
Yes, 7 affirmative, motion passes. 21529, offered by Council Scarpelli, be it resolved that the city administration organize a professional working group dealing with severe rat concerns in our community. Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, this is something that I put forth weeks ago, so I appreciate bringing it forward again this evening. But it was probably one of the most phone calls I've been receiving is from our constituents about the rat problems we're having. And I can understand the plan with the city moving forward with the health department, but I think we really need to move forward more aggressive, more detailed plan, and bringing in some professionals that really see this rodent infestation or rat infestation as being what they do best. I think that especially what's going on with the pandemic and what other issues our health department has, I don't think we're really putting enough time to really attack this problem before it even gets worse. So I know just recently Channel 4 and 5 had Melrose's issues, and we had so many different other neighboring communities that are going through the same situation. But I just don't want to, get so far behind with this concern that we're going to be really in trouble. So what I'd ask is the city administration, the health department, is really work together and try to put together and invite professionals both at the academia level and maybe in contacting our neighbors and see what we can do as a collaboration, especially when we abut some of these cities that are having such a horrific time with this. So it is an issue. I mean, it's I went to 5 different homes prior to my little hiatus, and the barrels have been eaten through. You see nests. I know that council's put forth some changes, hoping to allow private entities to public entities to enter private homes. So we're hoping we can do more. So again, really reach out to city administrator and put together a working group that will attack this and its necessity as it's been called on. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Scarpelli for bringing this forward. I've received numerous calls from various neighborhoods throughout the city, and it's consistent. I mean, I received calls from Wellington, North Medford, South Medford. One person even called me and literally FaceTimed the rats that were in his backyard, and it's a real problem. It needs to be addressed. I know that it's been going on for a while, but I would ask Mr. President if you could please schedule a committee of the whole meeting with the health department to. I want to see exactly what they're doing to address this situation. Are they baiting the sewers? Are they not baiting the sewers? If they are, what sewers are they baiting? What neighborhoods are they baiting? This is a concern that is throughout the city. Like I said, it doesn't matter. The various neighborhoods, and it needs to be addressed. So I would ask you if you would please schedule a committee of the whole meeting with our health department to get some answers with regard to some of those
You
questions.
making that as an amendment?
Yes, please. If I could amend Councilor Scarpelli's resolution.
As amended by Councilor Falco.
Thank you.
Councilor Morel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I thank Councilor Scarpelli for bringing this forward, and I think we saw the same news story. So I was going to suggest the amendment that the administration either work with surrounding cities or encourage representation from surrounding cities, because this, again, this is a regional problem. This isn't just a Medford problem. This is every city around us is facing the same issues, and the rats don't know where the city border ends. So I think just working collaboratively with those other cities that are affected, which as far as I can tell is everyone. So just amending to add that they invite representatives from surrounding communities to this working group if they can attend.
Are you adding it as an amendment also?
Yes.
Just quickly get that. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilor Morel. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Scarpelli for putting this on. I can date this back to probably at least 5 or 6 years ago in the Dexter Street area. We were getting a number of complaints back then for rats. The problem has shifted up to the heights around Car Park, to Wellington and the Haynes Square area. I'm getting a ton of complaints, Mr. President. Just tonight, coming to the meeting, you know how it gets dark early, I put my car lights on in the driveway, and a good-sized rat walked by the garage door in Wellington. That was in my own driveway. You know, this is becoming a public health crisis. And in my discussions with the city recently, as of within the last week, because I've been asking about the baiting, as Councilor Falco mentioned, I was told by a city employee they no longer bait the catch basins in the community. They do not use that as a process for controlling pest control in this community. I'm not sure what the process is. I can tell you firsthand, when you call and say there's a problem with rats, the city comes out and they give you a leaflet, and they leaflet all the doors in the neighborhood. And they'll tell you, don't leave food out, don't put your barrels out too early, don't leave a water source. If you're giving the birds water or squirrels, don't leave that out because rats are gonna look for the water source. You know, if you're growing vegetables outside, make sure you have them contained and not a food source. There's a lot of things residents can do, Mr. President, but I don't believe the city has acted enough on behalf of its residents. And I've stated this in the past, and I need to be critical, Mr. President, because yes, this is a problem. I read an article recently in the Town Online that said how it's a North Shore problem. But yes, it's a problem in other communities, but we're not doing enough. And I brought this up during budget. I believe, and I don't have the number in front of me, it was in between $10,000 to $15,000 that we spend citywide for pest control. Anyone that's called someone to do pest control, they'll come out to your house, it's $300-400 a whack to do an extermination around one home. Here we have 7 square miles with 15,000 homes, and you know we're spending $10,000 to $15,000 on pest control, and we have a rat problem. It just doesn't make sense, Mr. President. And I don't believe the city's taking it seriously. And I agree with Councilor Falco and Councilor Scarpelli. We need to call for a meeting, Mr. President, pretty quickly to find out what the Board of Health's doing regarding this, who we're bringing in as contractors, because clearly we don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to handle it internally. And secondly, Mr. President, as I stated before, and I'm not sure if the city's working on it or not, this council voted unanimously as part of the ordinance that we put together, was to allow for a document that residents can sign that would release the city of Medford from any liability if the city of Medford saw that they had, rat colonies on their property and the resident was unable to afford it, or it was a non-owner occupied residency, that they could sign a form and have the city come in, because this is a public health crisis, no different than COVID. You know, if there's a large nest on one property, that affects everyone on the street. And I believe it's the responsibility of the community as well as the city to step in, Mr. President, where need be. And we're at that point right now. So I would ask if as an amendment to, if the city administration has created that waiver form. I believe last I heard from the Board of Health, they were working on it. But if they created that waiver form that would allow residents to free the city from liability and assist residents in the containment and the control of pests in this community, i.e. rats, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And like I said, I've been getting calls from people at the hillside up there, and you know, then a lot of it's coming from, like as Council Marks mentioned, people feeding the birds. The bird feeders seem to be a big problem, big part of it also. So, on the motion by Councilor Scarpelli, as amended by Councilor Falco, and as amended by Councilor Morell, and Councilor Marks has also amended it. Seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco. Vice President Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Mayor Vial.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Mr. President, motion to suspend the rules to take paper 21551.
On the motion by Councilor Bear, suspend the rules to take paper, which one?
It's the communications from city
Okay,
officers. and
255,
employees.
21551.
Yep.
Seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Mayor Vial.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Communications from city offices and employees, 21551, to President Caravello, members of the Medford City Council. We respectfully request that your honorable body approve one of the three re-presenting maps presented during the last two committee of the whole meetings of September 28, 2021, and October 5th, 2021, after you consider the October 5 committee of the whole report. The full plans for re-presenting are available for view in the city clerk's office and online at Drive Google.com /file D20. I think if you call the clerk, it'll be a lot easier than we trying to read these off. Yes. So, I think we have to do the committee report first, correct?
That's fine with me. While we're under
Before we do that,
suspension.
we have to report this out of committee. So, we can have a motion to take the reports of committees first.
So moved.
On the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco, to accept the report of the committee meeting 21551 on October 5th, 2021. Seconded by Councilor Knight. All those, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Yes. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
She's absent.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. To report the paper favorably. Okay, so, good evening, Cindy. Name and address of the record, please.
Good evening, Sandra Gale, Acting Election Coordinator, 85 George P. Housett Drive.
Okay, do you want me to give a brief presentation on what you'd like to do today?
Sure. So as all the counselors know, over the last 2 weeks, we've presented initially 2 maps, and then we added an additional one last week. So we have Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. I think we covered all of the sort of glitches that we may find with any of the 3 maps. However, the one thing that was left out, and it was brought to my attention by the clerk last week, was that there is going to be an impact based on whatever map you choose to the voter. So if you choose Plan A, the voter impact of moving to a different precinct is low. Plan B is a little higher. Plan C is going to cover probably at least 50% of the city, I believe, Mr. Clark, is what we said.
It's going to be, it would be at least a third of the city because
At least a
it would-
third.
we would be taking 16 precincts and going to 24 precincts. So it'd be at least a third. It could be higher than that.
So as
More
you,
information on that, Mr. Clerk?
What information, Vice President Knight?
I do believe that would give us the capacity, though, to see growth of city population upwards of 38,000 people over the next 10 years without having to worry about having to do this again. So it seems like an option C, you know, if in fact the voter had to be moved this time, once it's done, because we've been able to address the future population growth to such an extended capacity. I don't see it having to change again.
Vice President, that is indeed one of the benefits of Plan C, but I believe Ms. Gale was talking about one of the potential adverse impacts. But you are correct, that is one of the benefits.
Plan B is also probably the most immediate solution. I know that there would be impact in the Wellington area, but when you look at where the exponential growth for the city of Medford has come from in the last 7 to 9 years, it has been the Wellington area. And the Wellington area is one of the areas where we were very top heavy in regards to not meeting that 4,000 residents. And that's what we have to remember. There are different terms and things that we use, but it's 4,000 residents per precinct, plus or minus 5%. So in order to eliminate that and allow us for the growth for the pending 40Bs, as I stated early on in the packet, Plan B would be the way that would address that. I also understand the council's position where you want to have the least amount of change, and that could leave you back at Plan A. Plan A still would impact the city with some change as far as boundaries are concerned, but not as much change if you went with Plan A. So if anyone has any questions.
Questions for Ms. Gale?
Mr. President,
Council Marks?
thanks again, Sandy. I appreciate all your time and effort on this.
Very welcome.
So with Plan A, will we be able to address some of the concerns that were raised by this council regarding someone that may live up the heights and have to go down to the Roberts School to vote, and not the firefighters club? Will we be able to address some of those issues within Plan A?
No.
We won't.
No.
Okay.
So the only thing that Plan A does for you is it shifts the boundary lines a couple of streets, or maybe a
Miss-
block.
Ms. Gale?
Yes.
Just, I think actually Plan A is 9 words and Plan B is 8 words. So I think
Oh,
we've been referring to them.
incorrectly?
Yes.
Well, I have
They change
Plan
it around.
Oh,
A,
am I wrong? Okay, sorry, my apologies.
not, so Plan A, the one, is that the one, Councilor Marsh, I'm sorry, you asked?
Plan A is really no change at all, right?
No, it changes a couple
Well,
of
yeah,
streets,
the
plus
street,
or minus,
right.
but it's not a huge change.
Right.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. That's the way I understand.
Sorry about that. My apologies.
So Plan A wouldn't address some of the concerns that this council has had. I know Council Falco mentioned it, and I mentioned it at the last meeting, with addressing some of the concerns of residents saying, why can't I vote at this precinct across the street from my house and I have to drive 3 miles? So that we can't address it with that. Potentially, we could address that with a Plan B that creates the additional ward in the Wellington area and shift areas based on that.
Yes, it addresses some, but it doesn't address all.
Okay.
So, and it also addresses the abutment of numbers so that we get correct with, if 1-1 starts here at, say, 3 o'clock, we're going to move the hands of the clock and go this way and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so that we are counterclockwise correct with what our ward numbers are. So that addresses that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Clerk would like to speak.
Just to follow up with your point, Council Marks, the council can move a polling place outside the census process and has done that. The council moved the polling place for 3-1 out of Lawrence Memorial, the former Lawrence Memorial Hospital, into the American Legion. Moved 8-2 out of the VFW and into the South Medford Fire Station. Moved 2-1 out of St. Francis and into the Roberts School. So the council, I mean, Sandy and I would have to look at the realignment of polling places, but we could move some polling places. I wouldn't want to do it wholesale. I would want to do it on a I would want to look at them case by case, but that's one of the things we can look at regardless of the outcome of your votes over the next couple of meetings. We can still look at realigning polling places. That can be done outside the census process. But For the documents Sandy's talking about, if there's a new ward created, for instance, or if there are 8 new precincts created, for instance, we would have to get those new polling places approved as part of this census process. Existing polling places can be moved around, and the council has done so before.
Thank you.
Council Morel.
The clerk just addressed my question. Thank you.
Any further questions? Ms. Gale?
Motion to adopt option C.
On the motion to, by Vice President Knight, adopt sections map C, seconded by? Seconded by Council Morel. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Ready for the roll call?
Ready for the roll call?
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
No.
Council Morel. Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
No. 4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, motion passes. Thank you, Sandy. Motion to revert back to regular business by Council Bears, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Who made the move to revert?
Council Bears,
And who seconded?
Vice President Knight.
To revert. Council Bears.
A and C, really, but yes.
Council Falco. This is to revert. Vice President Knight.
Yes, sir.
Council Marks. Yes. Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21576, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council recognize the following 41 Medford athletes who participated in the 2021 Boston Marathon. Ibrahim Abdullah, Amanda Buchla, Thomas Bolins, Carmen Bolas DeBron, Deidre Calvert, Brandon Campbell, Kelly Catalo, Gabriel Lamenti, Stephen Colella, Michelle Corrado, Kate Daniel, Michelle Danaher, Jessica Gatton, David Grotz, Kelsey Heavy, Michael Jefferson, David King, John Klein, Kylie Klinger, Clyde Maloney, Brendan McCabe, Matthew Morabito, Roy Monier, John Needham, James Nye, Andrew Novus, Caitlin O'Brien, Michelle O'Connell, Wendy Pilato, Bowen Beard, Margaret Peard, Michael Pooley, Blake Raymond, Bess Ritter, Leo Sacco, Dina Scarpelli, Michael Sullivan, William Tucker, Michael Tuttle, Gregory Wilson, Gregory 29, Jose Yaska, Jose 34. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. As you read off those names, I'm sure many of us see many familiar hear many familiar faces that had the opportunity to run in the Boston Marathon just the other day. You know, when we think about all the Councilor Scarpelli's going through over the recent months, to understand that his wife ran the Boston Marathon on Tuesday and then was there to support her family through this time of need Tuesday evenings is something that's amazing. It's just such a sign of what a strong woman she is. And that goes for all of these athletes that participated in the Boston Marathon, Mr. President, because it takes a certain type of person to be able to run 26.1 miles consecutively with nobody chasing you. So with that being said, Mr. President, I think it's beautiful that these individuals were able to get out there and get back on the track and follow the lead of Medford's own David McGilvery, race director, and enjoying yet another successful Boston Marathon. So with that being said, Mr. President, it's quite a celebration. A full year's worth of training goes into this, and for these individuals to have the opportunity to participate in the fashion and way that they did, something that's truly beautiful, and it's certainly what athletics is all about. So with that being said, Mr. President, I want to extend my sincere congratulations to these individuals for participating in the Boston Marathon. I'm sure it would feel like a condolence the day after the marathon, but, but the accomplishment of completing it, Mr. President, is something nonetheless.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Any further discussion? Oh, on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Falco. Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Morel.
Yes,
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21577, offered by Council Morel. Whereas the city of Bedford currently exercises the local option for tax deferments in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Paragraph 41, and whereas the upper income limit for eligible residents 65 and over is 50,000 per year, be it so resolved that a new tax limit for the program be set by tying it to the state senior circuit breaker tax credit yearly maximum cap. Council Morel.
thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this is something we discussed in April of 2020. The council voted to raise this to 50,000 per year. So this is a state program that the city engages in, and the city council has the ability to set the maximum income cap for people who can participate, and it can be raised up to the senior circuit breaker number, which is adjusted every year. When we discussed this back in April of 2020, the council was rightfully concerned to see what we were going to get as far as real estate receipts and didn't want to raise this too high. I believe Vice President Knight brought up the idea of just automatically tying it to the senior circuit breaker, so we don't have to revisit this every so often, as the state already adjusted that number, reflective of cost of living. This is a program that not a lot of people participate in, but for some people it is, a lifesaver, a game changer program. So I would just want to see that it be opened up to as many residents as possible. But I mean, we're still talking single digits, I believe, as far as people who participate in the program. I did ask Ellen Bordeaux for an updated number on number of participants. I don't have that number just yet. We do have time. I believe this has to be set by April for the fiscal year 2023. So if my fellow counselors would like to see this as a committee of the whole, I'm more than happy to move it there. But I think this is just a smart way to approach this program and then have it match that level set by the state.
Thank you.
I'd move approval, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
Council Baines, did you want the floor?
I would just move approval. I think this is a smart program. I know that the number of people who use it is pretty low, and I have run into several residents. I mean, 50,000 in Medford is not a big income anymore these days. And I know I've talked to several people who want to take advantage of this program, and maybe their pension or their Social Security is a little bit more than $50,000. So I think it makes sense to tie it to the maximum allowed by the state circuit breaker tax credit. So that's why I would move approval.
Thank you. Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank my colleague for offering this tonight, Mr. President. I see this a little differently, Mr. President, and I'm not opposed to tax deferments in our community. I think they could help some, but as what you heard tonight, Mr. President, there's less than a handful of people that actually choose to defer their taxes that are eligible. My issue, Mr. President, is not deferring taxes, but keeping taxes affordable in the community. And I think that's been a long ongoing issue. And the more residents I bump into, in particular, seniors on fixed incomes, Mr. President, they're concerned about the raising of taxes and the talk that's been out there in the community about potential Proposition 2.5 overrides. And that scares a lot of seniors on fixed incomes, a lot of families that are struggling right now, Mr. President. And I think those are the conversations we should be having to assist the masses regarding taxes and allowing people to stay in the community. We hear all the buzzwords about affordable housing, but when you keep on raising taxes and people can no longer live in the community, how affordable is that? And, we can have all the discussions we want around deferments, but a deferment is a 5% tax on the tax that you're not paying. So, and that adds up, Mr. President. And as we raise taxes every year, and God forbid there's a 2.5 override, that 5% grows because of the additional tax burden that we're placing every year on residents. So I think if we're going to get serious about looking at this, the issue is not to look at deferments, even if we raise the limits, and another half a dozen people took advantage. That doesn't reach the masses in the community. It doesn't reach the seniors that are struggling, Mr. President, not just with their tax bill, with their cable bill, Mr. President, with the cost of gas, with the cost of electricity, with the cost of oil, with everything going up simultaneously. That's what's hurting people right now. So I'd rather have the discussions on how we're going to keep our tax rate low. How are we going to look at other revenue sources? Are we talking about looking at generating other revenue? As our commercial property base shrinks, and it is, Mr. President, it's no secret, as it shrinks and they double the tax rate of residential, we are going to be shifting the burden, maybe not now, maybe not next year, but eventually to the residential taxpayer. So they're going to pay a higher tax rate because of the shrinking commercial base in this community. These are the discussions that the Office of Community Development, with the mayor, with the council, with the economic developer, this community. These are the discussions that need to be had, Mr. President. So, I want to just make sure that we're sending the right message. And maybe this council should be sending a message that we won't entertain a Proposition 2.5 override. And that would allow a lot of people in this community to rest assured that whatever is done is according to the state statute, which is below 2.5, Mr. President. Even that, to many seniors, is a tough pill to swallow. It's between getting your medicine or paying your taxes.
Or eating.
Or eating. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, Mr. President. And we have a lot of seniors. I've stated over and over again, Medford has a large percentage of seniors. So you may have bought your house 40 years ago for $130,000. Now it's worth $850,000. But you're property rich and money poor, Mr. President, because you're living on a pension from 1970 or 1960. And it's not keeping up with the rate of inflation. And this is what's happening. I hear it over and over again. How can we assist? And I tell people in city government, it's inherent that, that we have cost of living raises, we have contractual obligations. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts in the city. And I try to explain some of the modest increases that have happened. And this council, year after year, votes, Mr. President, to shift the burden to commercial. But eventually, the commercial businesses are saying, you know what? I'm not going to do business in Medford. They're crazy now. Their tax rate's ridiculous. I'll just go the next town over and we'll set up shop there. And that's what we're seeing, Mr. President. And it's unfortunate, and the burden is going to be flipped to the residential taxpayer. Do we need to do things in the community? Absolutely. The projects that we need to work on that are outside the scope of a budget? Absolutely. And those are the things we have to look at, Mr. President. And there are other avenues to address those issues. It's not just looking at a Prop 2.5 override. You can look at debt exclusion, which is a one-time fixed cost for a particular project that needs to be done. So I'm not saying we should never move ahead on projects that we need to do in the community. What I'm saying is we have to be mindful. If we're going to talk about keeping people in their homes and making Medford affordable, you can't do both. You can't raise taxes to the limit and then look at 2.5 overrides and say, I'm for affordability. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. And those are the discussions, Mr. President. Not an attempt, which I support. I was the one that lowered the age for senior property tax exemption from 70 to 65. That was my resolution back many years ago, Mr. President. Because the need was out there in the community, and it still exists out there in the community. And I hate to see people displaced because they can't afford to pay a property tax, Mr. President. And to me, a deferral is not the answer, especially when you keep raising taxes. That is not the answer. Does it help some? It may help some, according to the numbers. Doesn't look like it helps many in our community. I also want people to be aware, Mr. President, the Community Preservation Act. There is an exemption for persons with low or moderate income, and they should contact the assessor's office. If that's a burden to you, there's an exemption by state statute that allows you to be exempt from that. And people should be aware of that. You'd be surprised how many people are not aware of that. They don't know what the exemptions are. So that's another thing, Mr. President. There's the seniors over 70, disabled veterans in our community, which is a tax exemption, persons that are blind, Mr. President, and over 65 with low income. There's all sorts of criteria with those. But you can contact the assessor's office and they can walk you through the process. So I think we have to have that. I'm not going to be on the council come January, but these are the discussions that I hope to leave with my colleagues, to be mindful that there is other people out in the community that aren't as, in a better predicament, Mr. President, that are living day to day. You may not see them, you may not hear from them, but they're out there and they're struggling. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I certainly agree with Councilor Marks on some aspects of this discussion, that it does warrant further discussion. But in terms of the matter that's before us this evening, I think it's something that we should sit down with the city solicitor and the city assessor, talk about what it is we need to do to use the appropriate language to further enhance this local option. It does warrant a bit of further discussion, and the reason I think it warrants a bit of further discussion is because I want to make sure that we do it right, so that these individuals that do become eligible for this deferment can apply for it, and the council can do it procedurally properly. When you look at a deferment, it's a deferment. It's not an exemption. The individual is going to have to pay it back. So really what this does is it provides somebody with a housing stability option. It expands access to a safety net program, Mr. President, and it gives us another tool in the toolbox that we can use to help people here in this community. Councilor Marks makes very valid points, very, very valid points. But ultimately, right now, with this matter that's before us, we have a piece of paper that allows us to exercise a local option that's within our scope, purview, and discretion of this council to act. And I think it, highlights the value of deferment when we talk about all these issues that are going on in this community, and the push and pull that people are feeling when it comes to the pocketbook. So for those reasons, Mr. President, I certainly support the measure. I think it's a great idea, Councilor Morell. I wonder where you got it. And I'm hoping that we can meet on it in the committee of the whole, with the assessor and the city solicitor to further discuss it, because I do think it provides value here to the community, Mr. President. What it does is it says, if somebody has a difficult time paying, they can come to the city, and if they meet the income guidelines and the qualifications, they can defer those payments. I don't think that there's anything scary or wrong with that. I think that that's a service that we can provide here. And I think that it's something that would be beneficial to not many, but some. And if we're helping somebody, then we're doing good. So for those reasons, I support the paper, Mr. President, and I'd suggest that we meet in the committee of the whole.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President,
Councilor Bears.
I'm happy to withdraw my motion, but I do just want to say that about 25 minutes ago, we were talking about the fact that we're spending $1 per household per year on rat control. So if we want to talk about our priorities and what we're doing as a city and our city budget, let's do more with less every year, every year, every year. I understand the pressures. I understand that there are a lot of people in this city who need help. I think we need to have every tool in the toolbox on the table, because it is meeting priorities. It's taking 100 different things and trying to figure out, how do we move the city forward? How do we do it without negatively impacting people the best way we can? But when we're talking about 2.5% per year, which is the limit right now, right? That's the tax limit that the state has enforced on us. It's below inflation. It's below the inflation in the healthcare costs that the city pays every year. It's below the inflation in the salary costs that the city pays every year. We have $100 million street and sidewalk backlog. We have a fire headquarters that needs to be built. We have a high school that's falling apart. So if we're going to talk about, we're talking both sides of our mouths, we need to talk about what are we doing to address the long-term trends and issues in this city that people want to see fixed. We get what we pay for, and that's the result. We're living with the result. We live with $100 million street and sidewalk backlog that I hear about every day. So if you have seniors, how can we give you options? How can we give you help to keep the city more affordable? And you're saying, well, we can do this deferment, we can do an exemption. I talked about an owner occupied exemption, which I think could help a lot of people. Is the solution or the opposite to say, your sidewalk's not gonna be safe for you to walk down, that you're gonna have someone in a wheelchair falling out of a wheelchair because the sidewalk is broken or the street is broken, or you can't cross the street because there's a 50-year-old light? I mean, so if we're gonna talk about the needs and priorities of this community and the budget that we have versus the budget that we deserve, we need every tool in the toolbox on the table. I'm withdrawing my motion. I'm more than fine to talk about with the solicitor and figuring out how to make this work. But on the larger picture and the larger puzzle, it can't just be telling residents, do more with less, do more with less, do more with less, or telling city staff, do more with less, do more than with less, because that's what we have right now, and it hasn't worked. DPW's at half staff, a third of what it should be. City departments are all over the place with half as many people as need to be there to get the job done. That's a major issue too. And we need to look at it holistically. We need every piece of the puzzle. We need every tool in our toolbox. I agree we should have more commercial development. How are we going to do that? I agree that we should be helping people who are in need. And whether it's 5 people or 5,000 people, we should do that. But at the end of the day, do more with less leads to the results that we've gotten for a long time, which is we don't have the infrastructure, the services, or the buildings that people want to see, that people deserve to provide basic services. So that's a piece of this puzzle as well. And if we're going to talk about it, we have to talk about the whole thing. And I don't think we should be leaving anything on the sideline when we're talking about how to solve the problems that people in this city want to see solved. Thank you.
Council Morel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to change my motion to send it to committee of the whole. I mean, to Vice President Knight's point, we want to make sure we get this right. We have until, I believe, April to figure this out. I would like to have, if possible, have that, meeting as soon as possible so people know what's coming down the pike and we can get this set. But I'm fine to send a committee of the whole.
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess it's easy to, always try to throw money at a problem and not look at what currently exists and how you can work more efficiently, Mr. President. And, it's easy to go back to the well unless you've paid a tax. Unless you had to make a decision between your mortgage or your food or your medicine. So it's easy to talk in theory unless you actually live that. And there's people in our community living it right now. So my concern, Mr. President, is not looking at a tax deferment that currently may assist a half a dozen people. And then if we change it, it assists a dozen people. That's being disingenuous. That's saying, oh, look what we're doing to assist. The issue is, Mr. President, the tax burden on our residents. That's the issue, not deferring someone's taxes. How magnanimous is that? That will keep on raising your taxes, may even go up over 2.5, but we'll let you defer it at 5%. I don't hear anyone talking about the 5%. That gets brushed under the rug. At 5%, we'll let you defer your taxes. So Mrs. McGlynn on High Street, we know you can't afford it, but on top of that, we're gonna charge you an additional 5%, and we're gonna raise your taxes even higher than they were last year. That's how great we are. That's how much we care about the people on fixed incomes and the seniors and the families that are struggling right now. So, I believe that, and I've seen this budget grow over the years, Mr. President, and city services have not gotten any better with the increase in budget. So it is a matter of priorities. And my priority would be to set a standard, Mr. President, when we talk about city services. That would be a standard that's set, that's currently not there. We have the money to operate this city. There's plenty of money to operate this city. We just have to work smarter, Mr. President. We got to be more efficient, and we have to rely on those that have given to this community over the years and say, you know what? We're not going to force you out of the community now because we want to all of a sudden address everything under the sun. And if it takes a 2.5 override, no one wants to talk about 2.5 override. They'll come to the 1 yard line, but they won't push it over. No one wants to talk about a 2.5 override. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear 2.5 override. you'll hear the mumblings of a 2.5 override, Mr. President. And I don't want to be there in a year from now telling residents, I told you so. That was the intent from the beginning, a 2.5 override. And there's all this talk about affordability. How affordable is it when you have to move out of the city because you can't afford your taxes, Mr. President? Thank you.
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues for their thoughts on this, because I could definitely see both sides, but I agree with Council Knight that this should go to committee of the whole for further review and discussion with the city solicitor and the city assessor. So I would second that motion to move it to committee of the whole.
Thank you. Council Morel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to reiterate my point that this is a state program. I agree with what everyone said about just using all the tools in our toolbox. It's something that's easy for us to do. It's something we talked about revisiting, a year and a half ago. It's something that Housing Medford, I believe, first came to the council about like 3 years ago. So that's all I'm advocating for, and I hope my colleagues will agree to send this to the committee of the whole further discuss. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Council Marks.
and like I said from the beginning, I support this. And I've supported this and any other tax deferment and tax exemption for the last 20 years. So I've been consistent on this. What I have been advocating against, Mr. President, is the steady increase of taxes over the years. And then the recent dialogue and discussion in this community about a Prop 2.5 override. That's what's getting me, Mr. President. That's what's getting me. And that's going to hurt a lot of good, hardworking people, a lot of seniors in this community, a lot of families that are struggling to make ends meet, sending the kids to school and so forth. And unless you're in that predicament, Mr. President, unless you've paid a tax, unless you've had to make a decision between food or medication or whether you're going to stay in your home, you really don't understand the issue. And giving a tax deferment is not the solve all. That's going to help a few limited people, Mr. President. That's what it boils down to. But if the council wants to spin their wheels on that and not talk about the larger issues on how we're going to operate a city, Mr. President, with the current infrastructure that we have and the current taxes that we have, then it's going to keep on going on, and it's going to be a never-ending race to the top, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could put my 2 cents in there, being the senior citizen now in the room, I see things a little different now than I said, because now, like Council Marks mentioned, we're all house rich. I'm one of those people that is very house rich. Where do I go with my house? Do I move out of the community? Can't stay in the community, otherwise I stay in my house. But a lot of people don't understand is when you reach a certain age, like I am, the advice that you're given is to take the house out of your name and put it in your children's name. So in the event you go into a nursing home or something like that. So these people are no longer eligible for the senior tax rate anymore. So everybody forgets about that. There's a lot of people in that community that yes, they're living in, you're living house, but if they've turned the house over to their children because in the event they have to go into a nursing home or something, they don't want to lose their home, but now they're no longer eligible for the tax breaks that seniors get. And people seem to forget that. Let's say I'm the senior citizen sitting up here now. I'm hearing advice that I'm being given what to do with my house, things like that. So please take that in mind, that when we talk about giving the breaks, the people that live in the house, that really don't own the house anymore. So that's part of the problem too. So and I just say when we go into that discussion, please take that into consideration. No. On the motion by Councilor Morel, do you want to send that? I'm sorry, we have Mr. Castanetti. Name and address to the record, please.
Andrew Castanetti. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Caviello. Mr. President, I just wanted to add a few comments. Councilor Marks is absolutely correct. He speaks perfectly. As a matter of fact, I wish he was mayor for the last 10 years in this community.
Oh, thank you.
Anyways, we have a perfect solution that I've been presenting to the council for at least 17 years. And that is to help the owner-occupied real estate owner through a Massachusetts state law. And that's called Chapter 59, Section 5C, Massachusetts law, owner-occupied real estate tax exemption. And simply put, it would save the average homeowner in our city who live in their house. It's an 85% perfect solution, about $2,300 per year. We've been missing out on this exemption since its inception, when Chelsea got into it, when the state started in 1998. If we averaged $1,000 that we lost, we overpaid for the last 20-something years, that's over $20,000, not counting juice, meaning interest. That's to me, it's like robbery of the people. And a lot of us are seniors, house rich for sure, cash poor, with cigarettes at $13 per pack. Anyways, I can't understand why the city does not adopt it. If 4 out of 7 councilors adopt it, the mayor says yes, it's done in a snap of a finger with the State House. We get it. End of story. By the way, an override never happened in this community since I've been here for over 60 years. Never. We're not Winchester with multiple overrides of Barbara Anderson's Prop 2.5, rest her soul. And nor have we done any debt exclusions like Winchester High School did for their high school for $100 million. And my old friend, the bookie from Tough Spark, was on South Border Road living in Winchester, says, Andrew, this thing cost me $800 per year for the next 20 years to pay off the Winchester new high school. This is nuts. We're having troubles. Forget 2.5 overrides. You already have $180 million plus budget. Just cut the fat and get the job done. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. And remember, when you cut someone's taxes, then someone else's taxes are going to have to get raised. So,
Point of information. May I make a counterpoint, please? It's important.
Councilor Knight.
I think it's important to point out, Mr. President, when we set the tax rate this past year at $9.43 per $1,000 of valuation for residential properties, one thing that we did discuss was the residential property tax exemption. And when we went through this exercise in determining whether or not that would be something that was good for the community, I believe what was established was a break-even point of $727,000. So any home that was valued over $727,000 that was owner occupied would not see an increase in the tax bill of the percentage that we chose to apply. In fact, what they'd see would be an increase in their tax bill above and beyond what their regular taxation would be without an owner occupied exemption. So there are over 4,000 homes in this community, Mr. President, that are over the $727,000 break-even point. And over 1,300 of those homes are occupied by individuals that are senior citizens. So that is why the Medford City Council, when we set the tax rate, did not adopt the residential exemption, if I remember correctly, Mr. President. But I just want to get that out there, Clay, because I know Mr. Castagnetti asked why that wasn't adopted. And that's why, because there are 4,000 homes that are owner occupied in this community that would see an increase in the tax bill, not a decrease in the tax bill. And with a break even of $727,000, if you were an owner occupied home owner, say in East Ford, at a 2-family home, it sounds like you may actually be above and beyond that break-even point. You would actually probably see an increase in your taxes, not that owner-occupied exemption. So that's why the council did not adopt it in the past, historically speaking, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Councilor Bears.
And to that point exactly, one of the questions I asked when we discussed it, well, if we know how many are above the break even and we know how many seniors live in those units, how many are below the break even and how many seniors live in those units? And this zero-sum game is killing us. I don't disagree. The state has set our laws. They've said, you know, these are your rules. It's zero sum. Somebody does more, somebody does less. I'd be happy for us to find an alternative and ask the state to let us do it. You know, we could be talking about progressive rates. We could be talking about a graduated rate system. But at the end of the day, what you just said, if there's 4,000 above, and you know, that means there's as many as 11,000 below, given how many structures and households there are in the city. And if we're talking about what Councilor Marks is talking about, which is helping the people who are closest to the edge, maybe that's part of the answer. So, you know, if everything's zero sum, then we're gonna be putting our wheels through the mud and not going anywhere. And that's the position that state law has decided to leave us in. So, you know, at a certain point, I don't think people are gonna say, well, you know, that's it, that's the answer. It's zero sum, and we just gotta sit here and, you know, twist in the wind until somebody comes and saves us. I think we need to have a plan to address these problems, to assess our needs and meet those needs.
If you want to tax a non-owner occupied, then rents go up. So.
You know,
and that's.
People
where
elect us to
Mr.
make hard decisions, Mr. President.
Tough decisions to make.
People elect us to make difficult decisions.
And we make them every day. Make them every day. All right, so on the motion by Council Morel, you, to send this to a committee at the whole?
Yes.
Seconded by, second by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Absolutely, yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli,
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21578, offered by Vice President Knight, be it so resolved, that the Memphis City Council requests that the city administration take the appropriate steps to have the exposed castings along Mystic Avenue clearly marked and identifiable. Vice President Knight.
Well, Mr. President, funny thing happened to me at the coffee shop the other day. As I drove down Main Street and merged onto Mystic Avenue, then there was right in front of Export Towing. The pavement gets a little milled, little rocky. There's some construction going on, and there's a number of castings, Mr. President, along that stretch and further down where they're doing this work. They're not clearly marked, and I got 2 flat tires driving down Mystic Ave the other day, Mr. President, on Wednesday night, because the casting wasn't clearly marked, and I nailed it. And as I was commiserating over my experience at the coffee shop just the other day with Tom Tedford from Export Towing, he started laughing and told me that he does between 15 and 20 tires a week right at that location, Mr. President. So something's wrong there. Something needs to be done to protect those that are traveling by motor vehicle down Mystic Avenue during this construction season. You know, we're all anxious and looking forward to seeing Mystic Ave be fully resurfaced. But in the meantime, if 15 or 20 tires a week are getting torn up, that's 15 or 20 taxpayers in this community that are going to be put through an inordinate inconvenience. And also what we're going to see, Mr. President, is a rise in claims for property damage against the city if, in fact, we don't take the appropriate steps to properly mark these castings. So with that being said, I ask everybody to feel bad for me because I have 2 flat tires in my car, and also move approval on the paper so that we can get the area on Mystic Ave a little bit safer during this construction period, Mr. President.
Council Morel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Vice President Knight, for bringing this forward. And as you say, it's something that's an inconvenience in a car, on a bike, it's catastrophic. So I would love, thank you for bringing this forward, and I would love to see this change. Thank you.
And I understand it was 5 last night, right at the same spot. So, yeah, I think the city's going to have a nice little bill to pay going forward. So,
Mr. President,
Council Bears,
but what about the impact on Export Towing?
he's happy.
Supporting business in our community.
He's a happy guy. So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by, excuse me, did you want to speak, sir? Yes. Leave your name and address on the record, please.
Nate Merritt, 373 Riverside Ave. Besides marking, is it possible that there's something you could put around the casting so that, you know, you can drive over paint and you'll still wind up with a flat tire? But I can't imagine that there isn't something you can put around the casting that slopes so that if you do happen to drive over it, you don't wind up with the flat tire and you can see it.
Yeah,
Just something to consider.
I'm a desk geek. I don't know what the best practices are or what they use out there in the construction field, but I'm sure that they get something better than my idea out there. I'm sure of that.
On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by,
Second.
second by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21579, offered by Vice President Knight, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council requests that the city engineer restrict the hours of construction for the project abutting the Brook School to begin following the start of school, including the implementation of road closures, and be further resolved that storage and staging equipment, materials, and debris on public ways be relocated to a more suitable location. Vice President Knight.
Yes, Mr. President, after having, a whole summer off, the first day of school, the city decided that it would be a good day to start a water main project on the roads abutting Brooks, one of them being Prescott Street, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with. And over the course of time, Mr. President, since school opened, some 6 or 7 weeks ago, what we're seeing is on various days, certain roads are closed, no vehicular access during drop-off period. That coupled with the fact that we have, gigantic dumpster, construction materials and debris, and construction equipment parked along Prescott Street and along other side streets that abut the school, creating a situation that makes it difficult to pass, number one. Ugly, number two, and concern for the children, number three, Mr. President, they're in the area. It's a request to ask that the city engineer restrict the hours of construction for this project until such time as the students are in school. School starts about 8:30 in the morning, Mr. President. The construction crews like to get out there at 7 a.m. or so. And that hour and a half window is creating a certain situation down at the school in terms of traffic gridlock, inconvenience to drop off of parents and the like. That coupled with the fact that if you're used to going a certain way, Mr. President, you drive down, say, Old Canal Street, and you take a left-hand turn onto Prescott, and then it says Prescott Street's closed. What's your option? You got to go over the train tracks, turn all the way around, come back. It's just a really inconvenient situation. It doesn't really add free flow. It's not conducive to the free flow of traffic or a safe drop-off to children down there in the area, Mr. President. So I just ask that the city engineer revisit the practices and hopefully come up with a plan that's a little safer.
Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Council Knight for bringing this forward. I actually had the opportunity to drive by this area a number of times, and this is a major safety concern, especially with the kids in the morning going to school. It needs to be addressed. I think this is a good solution to look at. It's definitely a major concern and a major public safety concern with the children just coming and going from the school every morning. So I would definitely support this motion and move approval.
Thank you. If I could put myself, I thank Councilor Knight for bringing this forward, but my question is, we had all summer to do this. Why did we wait until the day before kids go to school to do this? And we just got through paving High Street, and now we're digging up sections of High Street that were just newly paved. So that's our MO with the city. We do a new street, a couple of weeks later, we pave it, we rip it up, and it never gets fixed correctly. So, and like I say, Council Knight says, I live over there, there's a dumpster full of pipes that's leaking rusty water. Again, the road's aren't paved. There's equipment there. Try getting around that street. That's a tough street to get around with, even with other thing, with all the parents dropping kids off in that driveway. It's a real tough thing. And then say that dumpster just moves down, and now it's right next door to the school today. I say, yeah, you had plenty of time to do this. I didn't know why we waited till the last second. I know why we waited till we paved High Street to dig up these things. Again, we've got to get a little more coordination of these projects. No, again, thank you, Council Knight, for bringing this up. So, on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by?
Second
by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks. Yes. Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 affirmative, motion passes.
Mr. President,
Council Falco.
may I ask that we merge 21580
Yes.
and 21581?
I was going to ask you that.
And if
215,
If I may, Council Knight, Council Knight is a co-sponsor to
Sure.
21581. Thank you.
Joe, 21580, in 28581, offered by President Caraviallo, and Councilor Falco and Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Memphis City Council send its deepest sincere condolences to the family of Mary O'Sullivan on her recent passing. Mary was a member of the Ladies of Fidelity and Mothers Club. Their presence in our community will be missed. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, as Council Falco has added me to his resolution, I defer to him first.
Thank you,
Council
Council Knight. Thank you, President Caviello. I just wanted to offer my sincere condolences to the O'Sullivan family on Mary's recent passing. She was a lifelong resident and a very active member at St. Francis Parish for many, many years. Thoughts and prayers to the family. Thank you.
Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Yes, Mary was someone who always loved watching the city council meetings, and I remember quite frequently talking with her daughter and granddaughter about the goings-on in town. And every once in a while, we'd get a request from Mary's daughter or granddaughter asking for congratulations or a birthday shout-out to Mary, and she really got a kick out of it. She was a great person. She raised a great family, and she's going to be sadly missed. So to Lauren Felch Donahue and to the O'Sullivan family, deepest condolences.
And again, I say, Mary, again, very active in the St. Francis community. And again, her presence is going to be missed. If we could rise for a moment of silence, please. On the motion by Councilor Falco, seconded by Councilor Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21582, offered by Councilor Falco, be it resolved that the DPW will repair the pothole in front of 491 High Street in the interest of public safety. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just asking if the DPW could fix a pothole. It's kind of almost like a depression in the road. It looks like there was some road repair work that was done maybe previously, and it just kind of sunk over time. So if we could have the DPW go out and repair that sometime soon in the interest of public safety, greatly appreciated. It's right
Thank
in
you.
front of the Magnificent Muffin. Thank you.
On the motion by Councilor Falco, seconded by.
So moved.
Second by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks. Yes. Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, the motion passes.
Yes. You didn't call my name. No.
I'm so sorry.
Uh,
I apologize. Council Bears.
Oh, yeah. Be careful.
21583, offered by Councilor Falco. Be it resolved that the Health Department provide the Memphis City Council with the standards and protocols that are being used to test air quality, as well as the frequency of testing in all public buildings within the city of Medford. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Especially with COVID-19 still with us in the new Delta variant, it's important that we keep up with the air quality testing in all our public buildings. It's important that the city has a plan in place to ensure the ventilation systems in the city buildings, that they're checked regularly. Sometimes they're checked mechanically, other times it's just a technician comes in to check the air quality. But I just wanted to get a report back from the administration with regard to how these buildings are being checked, how often they're being checked, and are they being checked mechanically, or is someone coming in and actually physically checking these buildings? So if we could get an update from the administration as soon as possible with regard to all city buildings. So that would be schools and city hall, library, fire stations, police station, all city buildings.
Thank you. No, on the motion by Councilor Falco, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21584, offered by Council Falco, be resolved that the DPW install crosswalks at the intersection of Cherry Street and Salem Street and Almond Street and Salem Street in the interest of public safety. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I received a call from a resident down in the Cherry Street area recently regarding their student or child walking to school to the Roberts in the morning. And from Haynes Square to the Roberts, there's pretty much crosswalks all the way through that neighborhood, with the exception of Cherry Street and Salem Street and Almond Street and Salem Street. So in the public, interest of public safety, if we could have the DPW add some crosswalks to those sections that I just outlined, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Move
you. So
approval.
on the motion by Council Falco, seconded by Council Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks. Yes. Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21585, offered by Council Falco, be it resolved that the Medford City Council extended deep and sincere condolences to the family of retired Medford firefighter Joseph Cantalupa on his recent passing. Council
And if-
Falco.
and if I may add Council Knight to this as well. Recently, Mr. Joseph Cantalupa, a retired Medford firefighter, passed away. I would always see Joe, he would always be at firefighter Sunday. You'd see him every year there. Had breakfast with him. I think actually, Mr. President, you and myself actually had
We did.
we had breakfast with him this past firefighter
Yep.
Sunday, this past May. And great guy, from all accounts, a firefighter. He would do anything, and it was just thoughts and prayers to the family. And of course, thank you to his family for his continuous commitment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. As most of you know, I have a background in organized labor. And when it comes to someone that was a fiery advocate for his membership, you couldn't find anybody better than Joe. When you talk to the current firefighters that have been around for a long time, that can share some of those old stories about what it was like negotiating contracts and going into the war room and fighting for what you need. They said that Joe was just quite a leader, Mr. President, someone whose actions spoke louder than his words, someone who wasn't afraid to fight the good fight. He's going to be sadly missed. His efforts, energies, and certainly his commitment to Local 1032 will not go unnoticed. Everybody I've talked to has only had fond things to say about him. And everybody I've talked to has said what a legend that this gentleman was in terms of advocating and fighting for his members.
Thank you. Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Falco and Vice President Knight for putting this on. I've known Joe for a lot of years. When I first got on the council, Joe used to come to that podium. And let me tell you, you couldn't meet a man that was more animated when it came to issues impacting not only the fire department. He was a strong advocate, as Council Vice President Knight mentioned, for his union members, but he was also a very strong advocate for the residents of this community. And he'd be the first to stand up and make sure that we had the appropriate apparatus out there to make sure residents were safe, make sure that the firefighters had the latest and greatest equipment to make sure that residents were safe, Mr. President. And he truly spent his time advocating, not just on the local level, but on the state level as well. He was a fixture at the State House, advocating for laws and additional funding, anything that would assist firefighters in their job, Mr. President, therefore making residents safer. So he will be sorely missed, Mr. President. Thank you.
And I say, like Council Fellow said, we had the privilege of having breakfast with him this year at the firehouse during the Fireman's Memorial. And you say, Joe was, he was the fireman's friend. He was there. He was there for his men all the time, and he always did the right thing. So again, Joe's another gentleman who will be missed in our community. Council Bass. We'll rise for a moment of silence for Mr. Cantalupa. Clerk, please call the roll.
Second.
Yes.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21586, offered by Council Falco, be it resolved that the administration provide a city hall staffing update to the Medford City Council. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. There've been a number of, let's see, postings recently with regard to open positions throughout the City Hall, and just wanted to get an update with regard to where we are, where the administration is to filling these positions. They've been interviewing people. A lot of these are, very important positions. We need to get them staffed as soon as possible. So I just want to get an update from the administration as to where we are with regard to having them finally staffed. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, on that point, I know that, I believe it was Councilor Falco, that with all the turnover and stuff, I'm not sure who we asked at this point. I think it might have been either Dave Rodriguez when he was here or Alicia Nunley when she was here. If we could get a copy of the organizational chart.
Yes.
After the passage of this last budget, we saw a couple of new departments get created, a couple of new positions get created, Mr. President. And there was a lot of talk and discussion about what this organizational chart was going to look like. And before all the turnover in the corner office occurred, I was wondering, I know we've asked for it. I don't think we've received it. So I'm wondering if we could just reiterate that request, Mr. President, to get a copy of the organizational chart.
Are you making that as an amendment?
I would love to.
Thank you. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I agree with Council Knight 100%. We should get an updated organizational chart. I just want to make sure that it includes the names of the people that are serving in those roles. I know we received an organizational chart during the budget. It just had positions that reported to the mayor. It didn't have the names. I think it's key that we have all the names within the organizational chart so you can actually know who reports to who. So as simple as task as that may seem, they couldn't get it to us months ago. Hopefully they can get it to us now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
So,
President,
Council Bears.
we may actually have already asked for this. I'm not 100% sure, but if you'd be so amenable to having an amendment that we get a specific update on the parking department and the status of hiring in that department. I know that's included in here, but I think it's important, given what Councilor Knight said about that being a new department. And we're 2.5 months away from shifting over to city managed parking enforcement. That's why I would like to have that in there. Thank you.
Mr. President, on that note, actually, here we are now, we're about, a quarter of the ways in. Next week, I will be putting forward my request for an update on the city's financial health. That was a request that this council had put forward, a resolution this council passed, asking for quarterly updates from our CFO. But right now, I don't believe we have a CFO. So I think it's very important that we have this financial update ASAP. So I'm asking, Mr. President, that you could, in advance of me putting this on the agenda, make sure you reach out to the administration and I'll let them know that that's coming so that we can possibly have.
You can send me an email on that tomorrow, what you want, and I will take care of that.
Certainly will. Thank you very much.
So on the motion by Councilor Falco, as amended by Councilor Bears, seconded by, and also as amended by Vice President Knight,
By Council Falco again.
and by Councilor Falco again. So on the motion by Councilor Falco, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21587, offered by Councilor Falco, be it resolved that the administration provide an update regarding the upcoming leadership transition within the Medford Fire Departments. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we were just talking about firefighter Sunday, and I remember when Chief Gilberti gave his speech this past year, he had mentioned that it would be his last speech and that he was going to be retiring. I think it was going to be November. The end of November.
Yes.
So this is basically asking the administration to get an update with regard to the transition, how that process is going, and just generally just to get an update. We really haven't been given any update with regard to this process whatsoever. I think we definitely deserve an update. We approve their budget every year. This is something that we should know about, and we've received very little information so far about this process. So it'd be nice to get an update, or I'm actually asking for an update from the administration, that we receive an update with regard to this process in the timeline as to when it's going to take place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
On the motion by Council Falco, seconded by. Second by Council Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morrell.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21588, offered by Council Falco. Be resolved that the administration provided an update regarding the staffing at Medford Community Media. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is similar to the previous resolution about staffing in general, but this is specific to Medford Community Media. Patrick Gordon, who helped us for so long with regard to council meetings, and he also worked at Medford Community Media. It's just basically asking for an update as to how the interview process is going for the position since he left for another community. Just want to know, have they interviewed anyone? Are they close to getting anyone to replace Patrick? So just like to request that update from the administration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the motion by Council Falco, seconded by.
Second.
Second by Council Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morrell.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Motion to take papers under suspension by Council Falco, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
President, can we take up public participation? We do have someone in the audience that'd like to speak on Riverside Ave
We have one more paper to go first. We have one more paper.
under suspension.
Yes,
Okay, this is right on the agenda.
okay.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
What are we voting on?
Suspending the rules to take papers.
Under suspension.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morrell.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. On suspension, paper number 21589, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council extended steep and sincere congratulations to Maria and Michael Price on their momentous occasion of the 50th wedding anniversary. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. These two lovebirds met back at Medford High School many years ago and have forged a beautiful relationship and have raised a beautiful family. They've become grandparents, still reside in the South Medford neighborhood of this great city, Mr. President. Just this past weekend, surrounded by friends and family, they were surprised at their daughter's house, their daughter-in-law's house for a 50th wedding anniversary, Mr. President. And for all accounts, from what I understand, it was a great success. Michael and Marie were both very, very surprised. They had no idea that it was happening. And if you know Michael and Marie, you'll know that they're two people that are just great individuals. If you're looking for them, you can probably find them down at La Conte Skating Rink because between their kids and their grandkids, that's where they spend the majority of their time. But they're great family people, fixtures in the South Medford neighborhood, as I said, Mr. President, and they've been able to tolerate each other for 50 years with love, bliss, and kindness. And it's something that I look forward to celebrating someday with my wife. So I'm very proud of them and very happy for them, and I wish them all the best.
On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morrell.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Motion to revert, Mr. President?
Motion to revert back to regular business by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco. Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morrell.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli. Council Scarpelli to revert.
We must have lost him.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. We have
Mr. President?
public participation.
Yes, we have resident Nate Merritt, Mr. President, from Riverside Ave, that would like to address the issue of National Grid's work taking place at the corner of Locust and Riverside Ave.
Good evening. Name and address of the record, please.
Nate Merritt, 373 Riverside Ave. So a lot of you have actually met since 2017 when I moved in here, and there's been a lot of excitement on the corner of my street. It's a busy area, understand that. We now have Wegmans, right, the Meadow Glen Mall. I had a car crash through my house the first year I came through here, so I kind of understand what it means when there's an emergency that happens, especially in the middle of the night, that might wake you up. Literally, the foundation of my house shook, and there was like bricks flying from the house next door. I know you weren't here yet, Councilor Bears, but yeah, it was kind of a disaster. I felt bad for the car too, actually, when I saw it. So that said, I do try to come here and not just complain, but also offer some solutions if we can. So that's really my goal. That said, I'm also now a dad. So since I moved here, some things have changed. I have a 13-month-old son who's actually not feeling well tonight. So I'm going to go home and probably have to take care of him. So definitely some shifting priorities, just like you, Mr. President, in terms of your age, mine also. So now that I have a newborn, a couple weeks ago, starting on October 20th, put my kid to bed, and around 9 o'clock at night, all of a sudden it's like, all right, what's going on here? And in fact, I wasn't home. My wife put the kid to bed, and I went to come in. I couldn't get in my own driveway because someone decided they were going to dig a hole in front of my house to go fix a gas leak. Excellent. Thank you for fixing gas leaks, especially like when they need to be fixed. So no gripes with that, and especially as it's approaching winter. Let's not try to fix gas leaks in the wintertime if we learned anything from the North Andover instance. Okay, so that said, hey, how long would this take? No notice whatsoever. And I'm not the only resident that was like, what's going on? Didn't even know they were necessarily fixing a gas leak. It's got a giant National Grid truck, and they've been poking holes in that intersection for the past 4 years, chasing gas leaks here, there, everywhere. So jackhammer in the middle of the night, right? Going through the middle of the night till like 3, 4 in the morning. What's going on? So when I came back the next night and said, hi, there's no one really to talk to, and I'm not going to go walk in a construction zone, but there are some nice police officers on, both ends where they shut down the street. And of course, I want to go home. Where do I put my car so I can, get home? Not very good answers from one officer that asked it. Sorry, I don't know. You have to go talk to someone in City Hall. Well, someone hired you for the detail. And I know when they have these jobs that they list the details and who can sign up to actually work the road job. So that was kind of a poor answer. Didn't really like that one. So I tried to do some homework. I actually wrote an email eventually because this lasted for like a week, Monday through Friday. And what's going on here? We're starting work at 9 o'clock and it's wrapping up, 3, 4 in the morning. I'm trying to keep the kid asleep. And my neighbors are asking, what's going on? None of us have any answers. So they stopped for the weekend. Oh, they must be done. No, they started up Monday morning back at it. So that's when I, sent an email, asked the chief engineer McGivern, what's going on? And the answer I get is, oh, well, I don't approve anything. During the day, you'll have to, we'll do some homework, but, it's the chief of police. Is that Chief Buckley? Is that right? No. Okay. So finally get a response. Oh, this is an emergency. It had to happen at night. It's an emergency. Got it. Takes a week to fix an emergency for a gas leak. Apparently takes 2 weeks because that's how long this thing took. We couldn't give anyone in the neighborhood any notice. Couldn't find, a slip in my mailbox, something on my door, right? I get bills in the mail all the time. Those work fine. They come great. Nobody could walk around and, put something in there. Who's the community person from National Grid that we contacted?
Dan Cameron.
Yes, so I spoke with Dan Cameron, and he said, oh yeah, and he was nice, very cordial. Apparently there was a failure in communication. My point is, this isn't the first time this has happened. In fact, in June of 2019, there was a sewer lining project on Locust Street that someone decided was a good idea to put basically make a giant hissing noise for hours starting at 10 o'clock at night. And they said, oh, we didn't realize it was gonna make noise in the neighborhood. There's people that live there. There's people that get up in the morning to go to work. They have kids, they have, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of residents. I think we need to do better, especially at communicating if projects are going to happen at night, whether they're emergencies or not. We could put some signs out. And the mayor offered a solution that was, well, even if National Grid doesn't, we'll send out a robocall. So I'm going to pick on you for a second, Counselor Falco. You have a cell phone.
I do, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So you get phone calls on that.
Yes.
Do you get spam calls on your phone?
Yes.
What happens when you get a phone number you don't recognize?
You probably don't answer it.
You probably don't answer it. So you think you're going to wind up
It
necessarily
usually
hearing
says
the
spam likely.
the robocall. That's not a good solution.
Mhm.
And more so is when you go ask for, where's the buck stop? Who approved these things at nighttime? Why do they have to happen in the middle of the night? I understand traffic can be an inconvenience. Got it. I drive around here too. Traffic's always an inconvenience. What's the policy in terms of like, how is that determination made besides it's easy for me to get a detail at night versus during the day? Maybe that's part of the calculus. I don't know. But I think it would be nice if, maybe this council could take a look at what that logic path is when we start approving projects at night that are going to generate some noise. And I don't know about you, but I would think it's
Mr. President? Mr. President, point of information?
Vice President Knight.
It's my understanding, and when these applications come before us and we read through the application, one of these councils behind this rail asks every time, what are the hours of this project? What are the hours of construction?
In the
When's the hours
duration.
gonna be done? We'll do the hours of, we'll do construction whenever the city tells us to. Whenever the city engineer, whenever the mayor's office tells us to. That's when we'll do it. That's when we'll do it. So I think what you're getting, Nate, quite frankly, is, what's that song by Blues Traveler? The Runaround? No
Very
one-
much so.
You know what I mean? Everyone's pointing, which way is, which.
Well,
way is-
apparently the
which way
buck
is
stops
better
with the
this
police
way?
chief,
You know,
is the answer I got.
ultimately, at the end of the day, the administration determines when the construction is going to be authorized and allowed. It's outlined on the permit. The permit's issued through the engineering office.
Well, apparently, according to the engineer, he doesn't authorize the permit. The police chief authorizes anything that when they open the road at night and they do construction at night.
Street opening permit, so the police would have to be there for the detail. The police get the detail.
Sure.
So any road opening has to have a detail there. But the city engineer signs off on any type of, any construction.
Yeah.
The city engineer has to sign off. Chief of police can't say, yeah, go open the street and do construction.
And we always ask the time, the duration, and I never remember approving anything
No,
to be
this-
open in the middle of the night. That's,
So we have an item on our,
Well, if it was an emergency, we
This
wouldn't
was
have approved
emergency,
it.
this was a level 1 leak
okay.
Yeah,
That's,
so
that's,
that
what-
that
that's
So we
they,
what-
wouldn't get
that they
approval.
were aware of. Remember we had these discussions when they were talking about the MWRA project with National Grid?
yeah,
This was a level 1 leak, and the chief made the determination not to do the work during the day, but he gave them approval to do it at night. So that's why there wasn't proper notification, but I agree, there should be some type of notification.
Well, and especially if it's gonna go on, it's supposed to happen a day or two, and that, like, what defines an emergency? Is a 2-week project an emergency, or is a 2-week project a project? And stuff happens,
A level 1 gas leak is an emergency.
understood.
All right, a level 1 gas leak is an emergency. There's no
Yes.
question about that. The level 1 gas leak is an emergency. To take 2 weeks to fix it is a little crazy to me, because if it's such an emergency, then shut the street down all day, get it done in a day. You know what I mean? And that's the way I'd look at it. But, I don't sit over there. I sit over here. So that's really not, something that we can control or impact at the time. You know what I mean? It's just mismanagement.
if you don't mind, Mr. President. I just have a question.
Council Bears.
Is it one, are they digging in one area or are they moving around?
So in this particular spot, it was one area.
Okay, and over 2 weeks, they're digging in the same spot?
They would dig and then cover it over, right, for the traffic to go during the day and
Yeah,
open it back up. So you actually have that lost time too, where it takes them like a couple hours to
Right.
open up the same hole and then cover it back over. And
Right.
if you total those hours up over 2 weeks,
Right.
right?
half
Let's
the
say
time.
it's like 2 hours a day
Yeah.
times 10 days, right? That's 20 hours, almost 24 hours worth of work. National Grid says they'll work 24/7. So I'm with you, Councilor Knight. If this is an emergency, fix it and get it done. Don't drag this out over 2 weeks. And a lot of you have heard plenty of complaints of residents when they hear the airplanes flying overhead when they're taking off runway 33. You drag the FAA in here saying, hey, it's too loud at night. It's waking up my kids, blah, blah, blah. I challenge you to then deal with someone with a jackhammer outside your house till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
You want to know some noise? In fact, I have dB levels that I was measuring and talking about, 1,000 times sound that's, happening. It's 30 dB, right? When they're wearing hearing protection, operating the equipment, it's not just the abutters. It's not a magical line that sound then up. It only touches the property lines. Sound travels.
Yeah.
So that's why I think maybe we can look at the criteria Yes, it was an emergency, but once it starts moving past a couple days, maybe we're not in emergency territory in terms of how we get the work done. Maybe then we take a look, go, hey, this is, getting out of hand. We can't keep dragging this out over 2 weeks. Let's wrap it up and get it done. So I guess my ask of you, is there something that we can do, pass a motion to revisit the logic tree of when work is done at night in this city versus during the day? I would hope so. And if not, I think that's a problem too. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's a problem.
Well, Mr. Mayor, to be honest, we've had probably 10, 15 resolutions since I've been on the council asking, why isn't the Winthrop Street project getting done? Why, we've had issues around this issue. And I think we've pushed, you're bringing it to us again. I'm sure one of us, if not all 7 of us, we want to put a motion on next week and say, what the heck is going on with this issue on Riverside Avenue? We have been saying to the police chief, we need Winthrop Street done this year. It's been torn up for 5 years. We need Mystic Ave done this year. It's been torn up for 5 years. And there's been delay. We were just talking about the Brook School.
Yep.
Why are we having these projects not coordinated? Or in this specific case, why is it starting the day that school starts? And we had an issue at Medford High School where there were projects going on as the morning rush was trying to get into Medford High School. So I'm hearing you. I agree with you. I think we've been pushing on this issue citywide. And after saying all of that, my caveat here is when we ask, sometimes we don't get an answer and sometimes we don't get the answer we want to hear. And unless someone wants to correct me, we can't order them to do it. So I think, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I think we will try to get answers here and try to make this solution, find a solution to make this better. Or at least better next time. But we have been asking those questions and had a very difficult time getting those solutions done promptly. So I just want to be honest with you about that.
Sure. And like I said, I'm sure there's rhyme or reason, but sometimes things change and it's good if we can understand and we can communicate what is that decision logic.
Mr. President,
Council Marks.
this is probably an ideal time because Nate, you're probably aware there's going to be major project done there relatively soon.
With the MWRA and all that?
A major project that's already been approved. So you're talking close to, I think, it was 3 to 6 months.
We haven't approved that, actually. It's still on the table.
Well,
Is that another, they tried to do that last winter.
right.
And we said, that's probably not a good idea to play with gas lines in the winter. unless
We
get
asked them to hold off. They wanted to do it before Christmas and we asked them to hold off, but it is going to happen. It's a major infrastructure improvement that they're making.
Sure.
And that's when they told us about the level 1 gas leaks. But I just want to say, Mr. President, when Nate reached out to me, I reached out to Dan Cameron immediately from National Grid, and he was very attentive. He addresses the issues immediately. It may not have been the answer that we wanted, but he immediately responded. And I just want to thank Dan. Dan
And he did, and he owned up and said, they could have done a better job. So totally agree. But, and in terms of coordination, if you're going to rip open the street again, well, don't pave over Riverside Ave anytime soon until they do that. I mean, it's like a war zone there anyways, but at least save some money and not, pave it over and then rip it up again. So some coordination could hopefully will happen.
We talked about it earlier, just paving brand new streets and ripping them up 2 days after they were laid down.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to take all the granite curbs and pull them out and give them to the, well, I was going to say, they're useless where I am anyways, because there's no curbing left. That's a whole nother thing that needs to happen there. Take the granite curbs, give them to the gentleman that was talking 2 weeks ago that was saying, hey, I need some granite curbs, because they're useless to us. And then fix the street right after they do the National Grid project, but just don't play with our gas in the winter time when we depend on it for our heat. Because God forbid something goes wrong, you're not running gas lines up on the street. Otherwise, I'm coming to bunk in with one of you and my family so we can stay warm in the winter. So someone better sign up. Was that? Zach, love it.
I think I live in the smallest house of anyone here. So,
so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
Okay, records. The tabled records of the special meeting of September 25th, 2021 were passed to Councilor Falco. Councilor Falco, how did you find those? On the motion by Council Falcon for approval, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. The records of the meeting of October 5th, 2021 were passed to Council Marks. Council Marks, how did you find those records?
I find it to be in order to move approval, Mr. President.
On the motion by Council Marks, seconded by Council Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Carviallo.
Yes.